Right, my friends, the book is called Forbidden Fruit, the true story of my secret love for the Bishop of Galway. She is certainly the most talked about woman in Ireland today. Would you welcome, please, Annie Murphy. Hello. Come and sit. Come and sit. Are you well?
I'm not bad.
You're not bad. Okay, you're bearing up. Have you had a hard time since you got here?
No, I haven't. I've actually had quite a good time.
Very good. I'm assuming, Annie, that everybody by now knows the details and the story of this whole thing. They must do because they've been hearing enough about it. But just would you remind us of the first time you laid eyes on Bishop Eamon when you came to Ireland after your very sad marriage and you were in a bad way, mentally and physically, and you met him at Shannon Airport. Describe that meeting for me.
It was quite a windy day, and I remember it wasn't there weren't too many people there, and he stood right out. You know, he wasn't moving, but he appeared to be moving, if you know what I mean. He has an aura about him, and he seemed so happy. He seemed to be a man of tremendous confidence, and just a very happy, self-confident man. He had a lot of light in his eyes, and just very warm, tremendous warmth that came from him.
And he greeted you and took you to the car, and what happened then?
Well, I noticed he moved so fast, you know, and I noticed he had a pair of red socks on.
Red socks?
Yes, and I did comment about his red socks.
What other color would he have worn, I ask?
Purple. So we got off to kind of a teasing start, and we took off, and I laughed. I said, you know, there's such a thing of pressing the pedal to the metal. You certainly fit that description. He was some driver.
He was a lunatic driver.
He was a very fast driver. I've driven with lunatic drivers, but he was a good driver. I mean, he was fast, but I did not feel afraid. I must tell you that. I felt a feeling of a kind of exhilaration, and he certainly had a wit. You know, that was it. You know, you could immediately start talking to him like, you know, I had known him almost immediately.
It sounds like you fell for him straight away then.
There was something there, I must admit. There was, something was gone in me. I was kind of like, zzz. And Eamon awoken something in me, awakened something in me, some kind of life. Maybe it was his driving, he has tremendous light in his eyes, and the way he talks and he uses his hands. And when you're in his presence, and I'm sure it goes for most people, you really feel that you're the only one in his area, and he makes you feel extremely special.
Looking back on it now, what are the happiest memories of that whole time?
Looking back, in the very beginning, just laughing with him, getting to know him, and he loved to play tricks on you. You know, he loved tricks, and he loved to take the mickey out of you. And I guess the happiest times were, just getting to know him, and knowing that there was something special between us.
Do you still love him?
Well, it's funny to say now, you know, I for memories, I guess, that you have, you know, and you bury, there'll always be something. I could never forget Eamon, ever, you know, and having his son, I had to, for many years, bring those very good memories up, because I wanted to give those to Peter. His father was not there, but I wanted him to have all the good that I felt that Eamon had. Eamon, unlike me, he had a tremendous zest for life. He was marvelous with people, and he had a tremendous sense of confidence, and I wanted Peter to have that.
You admired his kindness to other people, his generosity, his bigger-than-life
Yes, he was
attitude.
bigger than life. I remember once he was leaning against he had French doors into his living room, and that is an exquisite setting, an inch. And he was just looking out at that breathtaking view. And I felt that Eamon and the land were one, you know, they kind of matched.
So do you still love him?
In parts, yes. There must be something in me. But it's difficult now.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it's difficult because I'm here. Once you go out and you do something, something dies. It's not secret anymore.
Do you think that he really loved you?
I think in part he did, yes. I think he did. As much as maybe he could love somebody. You know, he was a man that was, he belonged to so many. To try to have Eamon belong to one person, I think we'd be asking an awful lot.
The point, if you could love him so much, it seems to me that it's very difficult to understand why you wrote such a book, in that it is very, very explicit, and it is very mocking of him in the early stages, I think. And I don't know of any sort of Jackie Collins or anything else of that kind of book which would be as explicit as you have made this. And I wonder, is it necessary to have been so explicit?
Well, we weren't like a normal couple. You know, we couldn't go down the street and hold hands. We could not go to dinner and show any expression of any bonding at all.
Because people would have noticed.
Exactly. Yes. It was a secret affair. And the intimacy that took place with us was behind closed doors. And that
intimacy mostly is.
Yes, and so we had a lot of all of it was secret. And so that's a lot of our times together were in love, and a lot of it was sexual, yes.
Yes, but I mean, even in Hollywood, as they say, where they have a fair amount of this action, or so they claim, they may split up and they may have affairs and so on, but they draw a veil at a certain stage and say, yes, that's it, but the details, they never ever go into details. You see, I think, if I may say so, that the very first morning I heard about Eamon Casey, I'm talking now about a news bulletin, Bishop Eamon Casey has resigned, he's gone to America, and there is a woman and child involved. That's all I knew. And you may say it's because I'm a man. My reaction was, oh, gee, maybe a one-night stand, maybe a few drinks somewhere, a weekend, and he's landed himself in trouble. What a pity. But I felt then that most Irish people had huge sympathy with him, with him. They knew nothing about you at this stage. Then later, as the story came out, the sympathy switched to you, because you were a woman abandoned, and he had done what countless thousands of Irish fellas had done, left the woman holding the baby, scarpered out the back door, that's it. And people said, what a horrible thing to do, and the sympathy switched to you. Now I have a feeling that you may have shot yourself in the foot because of this book, because it is so painfully explicit, and it didn't necessarily have to be that explicit. You could have written the story of the whole thing without putting in what you put in.
Well, I think that if this were a story about a normal couple, I don't think it would be such a controversy, but it is because it's about a bishop. I think people are looking at it as more than it is. There's more to the book than that. That is a part of our book, but it goes on for other things. You know, there was a tremendous amount of humor and pain in it as well, and that was part of it, and I told it. And so be it. If people don't like it, and they don't like me for it, then I have to accept that. And they may be right, and you may be right, and I must accept that.
Of course, it's a very ordinary story, because it's happened countless thousands of times. Man meets woman, woman meets man, they fall in love, and that's it. What makes a difference is that he's a bishop of the Roman Catholic Church, and he ain't supposed to do things like this. Now, did you ever at any time think that you could marry him or have him for life?
I'm sure, looking back at it in my fantasy world, I did. It would be a lie to say that I didn't. And yes, I'm sure, but it couldn't have happened. But we all have a real life, and then we all, not just me, and I have a fantasy life.
Yes.
And falling head over heels for him, finding somebody that was just so unusual and just touched a lot of me. I had that fantasy.
Did you ever think or get the impression from him that he might have been thinking of leaving the priesthood? Or
Well, you might have wished that because of the way he was acting.
you might have wished that?
I might have
Yes,
wished that because
yes.
of the way he was acting.
Yes.
Because we were reckless. I've often said that we were like two teenagers, one that had a bit of a rough go of it and one that didn't experience that. So there was recklessness in this on both parts. So you'd feel like a man who was of that age. He
was
more
then 46,
46.
yeah.
And you would think that if he's this reckless, if he's this kind of over the barrel,
Yeah.
maybe he is.
Maybe he is what? Thinking of leaving?
Thinking of leaving, but as you got deeper into it, you knew that was not true, that was only wishful thinking.
Yes, and did you ever say to him, I want to marry you, or did he ever say, I might think of leaving the priesthood, or did he ever give any?
No, really, the affair was one of, and I'll repeat myself, of reckless abandonment. It really was. We just went with it. And only when things got rough did we have to discuss what had to be done.
Yes. And did he actually think, and did you think, that this could continue sort of indefinitely?
I think for a while we did. And I think we thought we could just go on like this. We were just blind. And you can call me a blind fool.
Did he think it could go on indefinitely?
I kind of acted like that, because he didn't say anything. He just went with it.
Yes.
So we were partners,
You were
partners in this.
So you wouldn't accept the accusation that you seduced him and set out to seduce him?
No. I didn't set out to seduce Eamon.
Well, you were rather more experienced than he was.
Yes, I was.
Insofar as he was totally inexperienced in such matters, presumably.
Yes, but I didn't whistle into my bedroom. I didn't. I really kind of stayed. Actually, I could feel something coming at me, and to be honest with you, I backed off. There is a part in the book, in the story, that tells that experience, and I was kind of shocked. Not shocked. I knew something was happening, but I didn't pursue it. But I let it happen.
What woman doesn't pursue it, Annie?
Well, I didn't pursue it in the sense that I didn't make overtures. Maybe mentally in my mind I thought this would be nice, but I didn't pursue him per se. I let him lead, as I always did with Eamon.
You had more experience of men than he had of women, presumably. Did you find him terribly innocent and naive?
He was pretty innocent, but he certainly, and not to his, I think he definitely, as you say, in the end result, he was innocent, but that when he did kiss me, that was quite a kiss. And that's all I'm saying. That's maybe as far as Eamon had ever experienced anything.
But you got the impression he'd kissed before, is that what
Yes,
you're saying?
that's what I'm saying.
He was a practiced kisser.
He was a good kisser.
He was a good kisser, I see. And he kissed like he meant it.
He did.
Which he sure did.
Mm-hmm.
What about just going forward a bit? Do you think if young Peter had been adopted, would the affair have continued?
No, I think I would have died. I don't know what would have happened to me. I would have just gone away to some place and drifted off. Something would have happened to me.
Yeah.
I could never go back.
Now come back again to where we were, and what I find quite extraordinary in your writing about him is his capacity to delude himself. And
both our capacities.
Both of your, well, more so him insofar as you hadn't as much to lose by deluding yourself than he had.
Exactly.
Right? So his capacity to delude himself and his capacity to deny reality in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that.
I think it's sometimes people just have denial, and they can just go on and forget about things, Well, I'll worry about that tomorrow.
Yes.
And,
Was that his attitude?
yeah, worry about that tomorrow. He was very good at kind of separating his life and doing his work. He was a workaholic. And,
Well, clearly he wasn't. He had enough time for you in the 3 months that you were there.
yeah, that was late at night.
That was late at night.
But he did give me time during, the day as far as a
Yes.
companion when he could. It could have been just that this was something new to him, something that he wanted, and he went for it. And in some sort of blindness came in.
And did he really say to you one night at the bedside that if Jesus were here, Jesus would agree with what we're doing because I'm helping to cure you of your mental ailment by having an affair with you?
What he told me was that he felt no, really.
Nice one, Eamon.
What he told me was that I was very scarred.
Scarred.
Something had been completely lost in me.
Yes.
He had talked to my father. And although I had not told my father much, he must have gathered something. And he said, the scar that is there is, I really feel, I'm here to knit that wound. And I think I can do it. And I know people can tell me I'm wrong, but in the end, it will be knit.
He said this to you or to your father?
No, he said it to me.
To you.
And he said it to me on often occasions.
Yes. And he actually said if Jesus were here, he would agree with what we're doing.
He said, I think if Jesus were here, he would not condemn me for what I am doing. I think I am doing the work, that I'm supposed to be doing. This is good for you. I can see you changing. I can see you coming to life. I can see you healing.
Healing. And what did you say?
Well, I listened to it sometimes, and I said, do you think you're healing too?
And what did he say?
He said, don't be so cheeky.
That's what he said?
Yeah.
So he could...
He could have said different things, but I remember that as one of the answers.
Don't be so cheeky.
Don't be so cheeky.
I see. And when it got actually down to it now, when you met him in 1991, after that period, that absence and so on, how did you feel about him then?
I had some bad feelings towards Eamon, and I had some very negative feelings towards Eamon. Not all the time, but they were there. The reason for that was when he went to meet Peter, he only gave him 5 minutes of his time. And I think the feelings came for Peter. I felt bad for Peter. And of course, as I've told my son, Peter, I'm 50% of it. Mm-hmm. And so when I went to meet him in 1991, I was bracing myself for a very cold and a very hard meeting, and possibly leaving very quickly.
So you weren't mad about him then, but and is it true that he actually walked up and down the corridor saying his office in this corridor an inch with the Stations of the Cross on either side?
Yes, he did.
Before coming into bed to you?
Yes, but he came in to talk to me. It's not like we, said his breviary and then
rushed in
like a mad dash. No.
Yes, he said his breviary and then.
And they had a drink. Usually brought a brandy in.
Yeah.
Or generally it was brandy or something in his milk. He had a bad stomach. It was basically brandy and milk, and we'd talk. We usually talked for an hour or so, and about his day, about my day, and then about different things.
I see.
And then, and sometimes, to be honest with you, we just slept next to each other. I mean, and then other times it was something else.
Okay, I want to try and stay on time because I know there may be people in the audience, I'm sure there are, who want to talk to you, and I'm sure there are people on the telephone who want to talk as well. But before we leave you just for this break, and we'll continue then, here is your fourth clue for your postal quiz. We mustn't forget the important things in this show. Fourth clue from Frank. golly, he made a meal out of that, didn't he? There's no doubt about it. All right, thank you, Frank. That's your fourth clue. Come back to us after this break. Go. There you go. Okay, now, quick list of telephone calls so far. We'll take some in a few minutes. 3 women from Dublin are calling to wish you well, Annie Murphy. A man from Dublin phoned to object to you creating havoc in Ireland with your book and parading yourself around the place. Listener from Kerry has switched off her television because she's disgusted. Do you want to bet? Do you want to bet? They want to know, were you obsessed with Eamon? Did he become your victim?
I think we both became each other's victim in the end. We both brought each other down.
You both brought each other down. Is that how you regard it now?
I think by a hard question to answer, but given a lot of thought, and I think by our actions and subsequently our inactions, we both took each other down.
And that's how he is now, and that's how you are.
And I did, absolutely.
Do you regret that?
Of course, a part of me is sad. I have a son, and but when the son comes to you and says, "I want to know him," I didn't wait 17 years to do this because it was easy, or because I really was plotting this forever. I did a lot of other things. Secretary, word processor, I was a builder, real estate agent. I had a busy life. But knowing Eamon as I do, not that I don't know him, only in my area people know him. I feel that Eamon will come up again, maybe in a different light.
Do you think he'll come back to Ireland again?
I think so. I think, as you said, maybe my book helped him, because I'm the one now.
You're the one what now?
Well, as you said in the beginning, I shot myself in the foot, as you say.
Okay.
As a lot of the Irish people feel, and they will be sympathetic to him.
Yes, and do you think he should come back to Ireland?
If he wants to, of course.
Annie Murphy's book is explicit, says a caller, because she wants to make it a bestseller because sex always sells.
Well, if you looked at the breakdown, I'm not really getting, this is for my son's education, basically, and a lot of other players in this.
Yes.
So I wrote what happened, and a lot of it was, a lot of our bonding was that.
Was sex?
Sex as the outcome, I think, of love, which is part of it.
You had experienced sex in a previous life which was not part of love.
Exactly. I
And
think,
that is what had scarred you with.
yes.
Yes.
And as a teenager.
And as a teenager, but mainly with this husband who was pretty rough with you, to
Yeah.
put it mildly.
Yeah, it was a sad affair.
So you know the difference between sex with love and sex without love.
Absolutely.
How does Peter feel about the book, they want to know? Has he read it?
No, I told him a lot about the book, and he said, not now, not with everything that's on his plate as far as college is concerned.
He sounds like he's wise beyond his years.
I gave him whatever I had. Whatever I have, I've given to him. Not that I have a lot.
A lot. Did you, going back to the whole thing, did you never think of contraception, either of you?
Well, certainly Eamon didn't. I didn't have any. With me. I came to Ireland just for a month, and in the beginning, sure I did. And later on, it's hard to explain. You know, I suppose if anybody's going to dislike me, they're going to dislike me for falling in love with a man and selfishly, and I say selfishly, love it can be selfish, wanting to take a part of him through my life. Reckless, selfish, you know, I wanted to take a part, and I told him that. I did not lie. I said I was not that worried about it.
About contraception?
About contraception and what would happen without
And did he ever say, you take him off very well in the book with his God Almighty Annie, and I can hear him now saying, God Almighty Annie. He said God Almighty about a lot of things. Was contraception ever discussed? Did he ever say?
No.
Never.
What was he going to say? He didn't believe in it.
Well, I know, but that's the odd, peculiar denial that he didn't believe contraception is a sin, but what he was doing wasn't somehow. It's
well,
just
there were contradictions,
There sure were contradictions in both of you.
Exactly.
You're almost getting to the stage of telling me now that you wanted this child and that you planned it and that you allowed it to happen.
I didn't have contraception.
That's right.
Right. The affair was going on. You're playing
Yes.
Russian roulette. A
Yes.
bullet's going to go off and something's going to happen.
Yes.
He knew that. I told him that.
Did he know that, though? Did he know that?
How couldn't he?
Well, he was so innocent.
You're not that innocent.
Well,
wait
a
a minute.
Well, wait a minute. As a woman said to me during the week who was very much on your side, only the Roman Catholic Church in Ireland could produce a man of that age who was such a gom in so many areas, including this. That's what and I mean that in the kindest possible way.
I understand.
We're talking about clericalism, a thing called. And let's face it, he had made up his mind to be a priest from a very, very young age. And that's what I mean by so innocent, in spite of the fact that he'd been immersed in other people's problems all his life. But again and again, you say contraception never mentioned by him, never crossed his mind, and yet he presumably knew he was playing Russian roulette, and so did you.
That's right.
Now, you might have been expected to bring the matter up, but he never did.
No, he didn't. And there was at one point in our relationship that I said, I should go home.
You said?
Yes. I
Yes.
said, I should go home.
To get out of this?
Yeah, this is dangerous.
Yeah.
It was my one point where I was not selfish, and I didn't want to go home. Look, I wanted to kidnap him and take him to an island. I'm telling you the truth. I was mad for him, and I felt, in that stage, he felt that way about me. I could be wrong, but I said I should go home because something could happen here, and I said to him, if I had your child, it wouldn't bother me, and that is the danger.
And he said?
He didn't say much that night, and he came in the next morning and he said, don't go yet. Don't go yet. You're really not ready to go. You're not ready.
But he didn't respond to you saying, I might have your child.
No, he didn't.
Line 5. Hello, line 5.
Hello,
Good
Kay.
evening. Yeah.
I would like to ask Annie Murphy 2 questions. The first one is, why did she wait 18 years to conceal the fact that she had a relationship going with Bishop Casey? And secondly, I would like to ask her, did Bishop Casey ever tell her that he loved her?
Second one first.
Yes, he did. He told me,
I love you.
I love you, pet. That's what his words.
Okay, and the first one, waiting 18 years?
Well, it really wasn't something I wanted to do. I'll try to be quick about this. This thing evolved. And it came through as probably most of these things come through the child wanting to know.
Who his father was.
And then meeting him and being denied access, a door slamming in his face.
Yes.
A 3-minute meeting.
Made him all the more resolute.
Made him more, very resolute. And it was 1988 when he was first approached by the man I'm with, Arthur, who I knew nothing about, and he said no. And up to 1991, where it broke.
That's what brought it to a head, in other words.
Yes.
That's what brought it to a head.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, caller, for that. Line 4, I'll take. Hello, line 4.
Hello.
Yeah.
Could I put a question to Annie Murphy?
Yeah.
She stated publicly that she's only in this for recognition for herself and her son.
Yeah.
I would like to know if she's going to repay back any of the monies that were used to support her all the years from the proceeds from the multi-million-pound selling book and blockbuster movies.
Repay the money to whom?
To the parish, the diocese, to Bishop Casey, supporters and friends, anybody who gave money to support her and her son.
I don't believe that the money that he paid to you during the years was from diocesan funds.
No, it was small.
It was small amounts. I'm sorry. And anyway, how can you possibly trade it? If he did take contributions from friends, I'm sure they do not wish to have any sort of truck with getting the money back. Whatever. Line 1. Hello.
Hello.
Yes,
Hi,
sir.
How you doing?
Yeah.
My name is Frank Byrne, and I'm calling from Dublin.
Yeah.
And I'd like to ask Annie a question.
Yeah.
Gay, hello Gay, how are you? Gay, I was just wondering, is this not the time, Annie, that the Catholic doctrine might look at male priests and just decide that maybe now's the time to decide whether or not male priests should remain celibate in the Catholic religion, especially like unopposed to other priests or other ministers in other
Okay,
religions?
we got your question. That's fine. Yes, celibacy in general. Thank you, caller. Celibacy in the Catholic Church.
I'm not a theologian.
You're not a theologian. You're not an expert, but
That's right. I can only speak for myself.
okay. If there had been marriage allowed in the Catholic Church, do you think you and Eamon would have married?
I probably would have liked it.
You would have liked it.
I can't speak for Eamon, really.
Well, he gave you a fair indication that he might have liked it at some stage, right?
I think he did.
Yeah. I can see how coquettish you can be on occasions. Tom Flynn. Good evening. Do you think Bishop Eamon is going to come back to Ireland? Tom Flynn is a friend of Bishop Eamon's and knows something of this story.
Yes, I
Can I ask?
believe he will, Gay, ultimately.
You think he will?
He certainly will, yes.
Yes.
I think what really saddens me is the complete tissue of lies that this story is. We could spend the whole night going through item by item, but that's not an issue at this stage. I have a certain question I would like to put to Miss Murphy, and it really relates to just a very simple question where she talks in the large coffee-stained birthmark on his knee of her son, and where she went to her lawyer in the later stage and he demanded proof in relation to this, and she gave him one, the biological proof, because according to the book, father and son had exactly the same large birthmark in the same place. And to quote the book, the odds that are against that are apparently 1 in many million. So I'd just like to know a little more about the birthmark and which knee it was on and that kind of stuff.
Okay. What happened when Peter was about 3 years old, he went to his pediatrician, who he had been going to for about a year and a half, and he noticed that coffee stain on his leg. And he said, that's very unusual.
Sure.
And he was going to send Peter over to New York Hospital to have it looked at further, because these things can, if they have to be taken off, they can cripple
And you say
the
the
child.
same stain is on Eamon Casey's leg?
It's got a stain. I had
The
noticed
same
it.
stain?
Yes, it's like a coffee stain.
And you say he has no such stain?
Oh, he has absolutely no stain on his leg.
No
I
such
mean,
stain.
not whatsoever. I was swimming with him quite recently, and I discussed it with him, and I, in fact, checked with all his family. But so it would seem to me that for whatever reason that was put into the book, that there's absolutely no justification whatsoever. But that's symptomatic, I think, sadly, of the whole situation.
I saw the stain. It's a very, very, very light stain. As Peter gets older, you can barely
Sure.
see it.
Okay.
It is, but it is there.
Which is Patricia? Patricia, hello Patricia.
Hello,
You
Gay. How
were
are you?
secretary to Bishop Eamon
That is
Casey.
right,
Yes. You've obviously read the book, and
I've obviously read the book, yes.
You're disappointed in the book,
I am.
presume.
Good evening,
Yes.
Annie.
Good evening.
Annie, you know me well, and I know you.
Yes.
And
it's a long time later.
A long time later, Gay. One of the things I'd like to say to Annie at this stage is, Larry is dead, Annie, and you actually got the colour wrong. He was a
No,
white
but I knew the
poodle.
color was wrong, and I
Yes.
tried to change it.
He was a white
He was
poodle.
almost white.
Sorry, Gay.
Let's not talk about the colour of the poodle.
No, but I did know it was.
Well,
it was dark.
I would like to recall an incident, Annie, that happened, if you don't mind, Gay, that I address Annie on this.
Yes.
An incident that happened the day after your baby was born. I visited you in the Rotunda Hospital,
Mm-hmm.
and on that day, you introduced me to a very handsome-looking man. Now, after that gentleman had left, you said to me, that is the father of my child. I'm sorry, Annie, but that is a fact that happened.
No, I'm sorry, I'm going to disagree. I disagree with you because it's not the
I have a
truth.
very, very vivid memory of it. It's a memory,
Well, describe him, Pat, to
Well, I
everybody.
can't describe him because in actual fact, Annie, you have also a very handsome son, and it was the one thing I did say to myself, oh my God, he looks so like that
That
man.
is a lie.
Fine, okay. I'm
Okay.
not going to
Then
dispute that
we'll
with
end
you.
it at that. That is
But,
untruth.
well, if you're saying that's a lie, I'm afraid there's a lot of other incidents in that book that I actually could go into details with, but I'm not going to. But I will take one, which you have described in graphic detail, Annie, that the bishop white-knuckled, etc., saw you off at Dublin Airport. Now, actually, on that day, and I'm sure you will remember this, I picked you up with my sister from Helena's house, also your baby, obviously, and we saw you off.
And who was standing when we went
Now,
down?
sorry, Annie, I'll have to finish. It's on record in the diocesan office in Kerry. Bishop Casey had a meeting that day in Kerry. There was no possible way he could have been in Dublin with you.
You could doctor that. Bishop Casey said...
How can I mean, excuse me now, Annie, there's no way I can doctor diocesan records. I mean, there's no way.
Look, and I went...
No, sorry, excuse me. Sorry, Gay, yes.
Just a minute. Sorry, love, yeah.
Bishop Casey said to me, I didn't want him to take me to the plane.
Airport.
I didn't. I was upset with him.
Yes.
He came to me that morning, and I remember distinctively, and we made up to the degree that we could make up to. He said, I didn't want him. He said, I took you into Ireland, I will take you out of Ireland. When I went down in a wheelchair, and I went down in a wheelchair...
You remember the wheelchair? Yes.
I remember Annie demanding a wheelchair.
Okay.
I didn't demand a
remember a
wheelchair. I
wheelchair.
didn't want a wheelchair, for God's sakes. I wasn't a crippled. I did not. And Eamon was standing there holding the railings, and they were like metal railings, and he was saying, goodbye, Annie, and his hands were white. Now, this is my story. That is Pat's story. Okay?
I'm sorry, Annie. Now,
You said he wasn't there.
I am very positive. It's on record. Gay, actually, one final point. She did bring up the question of contraceptives there herself.
Yes.
Annie showed me, amongst and some of my friends, including my sister, very shortly after she came to Ireland, what she called rubbers. Now, I actually had never heard that expression before. And I will be very explicit, and she also showed me how to use them. Now, Annie, you know, and I know, that that is the truth.
My sister had brought over...
This was long before your sister came to Ireland.
How could I bring rubbers into Ireland? I didn't
There was
bring
no
rubbers
problem
into
about
Ireland.
bringing them in.
I mean,
I worked in London, I know that.
Please. I won't even dignify that with an answer, because it's not true.
Well,
I mean, Pat, go ahead, you know.
Well,
that's
Annie,
it.
can I put one through you? Father O'Keefe has 3 times, as you know, you were on Radio Kerry yesterday, Father O'Keefe has 3 times said, for example, that he was never in a situation where he drove the car with you and Eamon in the back snogging.
I had a brutal cold, and I was coughing. I had like croup. People can deny, and I expect them to deny. I don't expect anything else. And I was coughing, and Eamon had his arms around me, and he could do that to anybody. He was he was that type of man, and I had like a croup, and I couldn't stop coughing. I also had panic disorder.
Yes,
that went in and out of my life.
You had panic fits, yes.
I had panic disorder. And because fit sounds like
I'm sorry,
you're
maybe
giving
I shouldn't
me
have said fits.
something.
No, I beg your pardon. You have
That's
panic.
all right,
Yeah, okay.
And he was holding me, and he had been with me when I had terrible panic, and I felt like my windpipe was closing. And Father O'Keefe drove the car, and Eamon was in the back. Now, this was not, it was necking. It was
He was just taking care of you.
Taking care of you.
Yeah.
Please don't lose it, because we're in the middle of the country.
Right. Well, Father O'Keefe says he has no memory of that. Furthermore, he wasn't his confessor. It's a small point, but you...
I said I didn't know.
You didn't know.
I
That's
didn't know.
right.
I
You
said
did.
maybe
You
he
did say-
was.
yes, okay.
He never told me who it was.
Which is Girly, please? Girly. Hello, Girly. You wanted to make the point about the leg of the bed collapsing.
That's right, actually. My name is Veronica.
Veronica,
Yes. Annie mentions me in the book,
Yes.
which is obviously why I'm here. And I was a student in Dublin at the time, and she recalls an incident where I had invited herself and my sister Patricia, who was Bishop's secretary, and the Bishop for a meal. Now, also present there was my brother and his wife. Now, I was in a small flat actually, 1-bedroomed flat in Dublin.
Yes, in the book it says that Eamon said to you, Annie and I want to have a private conversation, we want to go into that bedroom, it's a private conversation, and you cleared out and let them in.
Well, in actual fact, I remember the incident well, because it couldn't have happened. I had a flatmate who was in bed with a migraine all day, and I remember cooking that meal. And actually what I do remember, Annie, and I'm sure you will remember this yourself because you were constantly doing it, you got up in the middle of the meal and went out and washed your hair and came back dripping wet. That was the thing you were inclined to do at the time.
What, in the middle of a meal?
Oh yeah, regularly.
A lot?
Lot, yeah.
Excuse me,
Is that so, Annie? That you were inclined to get up in the middle of meals and go and wash your hair
Well, not maybe
and
in
come
the
back?
middle of meals as such, but You did wash your hair a lot.
You're doing it again
I
now,
wash my
Annie, you
hair
see.
once a day. I mean, I wasn't going in there washing my hair 5 times a day.
Okay,
No,
anyway,
I mean,
get back to the bed.
really making me
The
look.
incident did not happen, Gay.
It did not
It
happen.
did not happen.
There was no collapse of a leg of the
Absolutely.
and
There
topped
was
up with books.
no way. My flatmate was in bed. It
Your
couldn't have
flatmate
happened.
wasn't
But I
in
mean,
bed, and he did come in, and we sat on the bed, and the bed did break, and he took a few books and put them under there. Now it's
Well,
your,
I
you know,
suppose,
that's
Annie,
it.
I'm not
there was
here
no,
to
there was
score
no
po- I'm
flatmate
not
in
here
there.
to score points with you. I feel the whole image you have depicted in this book is dreadful. The man that you maintain you loved, you're depicting as a villain. You are the heroine, which is extraordinary all the time. I mean, you know.
I did not
the
portray
man
myself
we knew,
as
the
a
man
villain.
we knew as Bishop Casey was a very good, caring, compassionate man
I bring that
who
out
loved
too.
people. Also, you depict him talking about people behind their back, saying things about them. He wasn't capable of doing that. He just wasn't. He never used bad language. He did not cheat at poker. All the things you say about him, he was not that type of man.
He
and
was
you know
teasing
that
in
very
poker.
well, Annie. You know that very, very well.
I said he-
I suppose it sells. You know, money is always. I'm very surprised at a man of the caliber, or maybe I shouldn't say caliber because I don't actually know the man, but such a high-profile man as Peter de Rossa, really writing the type of rubbish that's in that book. The lies that are in that book. I mean, and that is reality. We were there, we know.
But you weren't there all the time.
No, I wasn't there
didn't
all the
know that.
time.
I didn't know that you were there all the time.
No, I
I
wasn't
saw
there
you
all the
very
time.
infrequently.
We have an extraordinary situation, Gay, where this child is supposed to be conceived in a 2-seater Lancia in a gravel pit in Dublin.
In Lucan.
In Lucan. The historical record showed that the bishop did not have a Lancia at that time, and I've checked that in great detail. He had a Mercedes, which subsequently changed for a saloon Lancia. Then we have the amazing situation where there is a full moon on the 31st of October 1973, a small point, a nearly full moon. You check with anybody like Dunsink and you find that that was the time when the moon, in point of fact, was at its lowest ebb and the night was completely overcast.
But there was a moon.
It was overcast, my dear, with the meteorological
was a moon.
office. There was, but hidden behind a completely cloudy, overcast sky. So we have this extraordinary
You're not
phantasmagorical
any of
story.
you disputing that there was an affair between Annie Murphy and...
No, there was some relationship with Annie Murphy.
It's the way she depicts them, and
Yes.
it's the lies. In fact, Gay, can I make one final point?
Yes.
There is one sentence or 3 words in that book that I know is true, and that is, Larry hated people.
That's her dog.
Who's Larry?
The dog.
The dog.
She mentions
Larry
them.
liked
She
them.
mentions them. She mentions them. in the
Larry
book.
liked a lot of people, but he was particular in who he liked.
Very
He was particular, and he didn't mind me.
Helena.
He didn't like
I am
people.
Helena's here.
Sorry, Helena, I beg your pardon. Sorry,
Hi.
Helena, yes.
Annie knows me
yes.
well as well.
You're Eamon's niece.
Niece.
Yes.
Yes.
And
I
you were
am-
in Inch on several occasions.
Yes, on many of the occasions,
Yes.
because I went there to recover when I
Yes.
had my children. They were-
Boys, would you back off there, please? Just back
They-
off, please.
and-
Just over that way, yeah.
The main thing with me that upset me about the few pieces I've seen in the book is that Annie makes a statement at the beginning of the book about having to change people's name for fear of embarrassing
Yes.
them. But further on, she goes into the book and she tells a story about my sister Maureen, who is handicapped, who through an accident of birth.
Yes.
And the family feel very badly that under the circumstances she did not have the kindness to change Maureen's name at least, and that she has opened up Maureen to ridicule and verbal abuse from people. Maureen cannot help the way she is. She was born like that. And it is a cruel, unkind thing to have done to somebody who really had no part in this story.
Okay.
Also, she brings in a thing about my family. My father died very suddenly one morning and left my mother, who was very young at the time, with 5 children under 10. One, as which you know, was Maureen, who was 21 months and had been seriously ill.
This is a personal upset, Annie.
Yes,
from-
and I feel
from Helena.
that she has treated us very, very unfairly.
Do you want to
because
say anything about that,
she-
Annie?
Let Helena
That was not
finish.
necessary.
Yes.
It was totally unkind and untrue. And my family feel very badly. Whatever she has done in the book, other has nothing to do with me.
Yes.
But I feel she has changed other people's names for little reasons. They were
Yes.
only at dinner tables.
Yes.
But she depicts us in the book as
Okay.
being terrible
What do
people.
you say about that, Annie?
Well, my instructions were that all names were to be changed.
But you certainly made no effort to change Maureen or my name
Or
in
my
the book.
name. My
And
name
I
was-
was
Or my
very
name.
good to, and I was very good to you when you were here, Annie. And I,
Well, what I can say to you in this question is that you can also remember, Helena, that my parents, and my father was a doctor at the time, took your 5 children in for a month, almost 6 weeks in the summer, and then when Maureen was very ill, she was a preemie baby, and she was very ill, my mother came in, because your mother was ill, and took her out with my father and nursed her for 6 months. Our whole family did. And that was brought in because, and we took care of her, and she became better. And my mother, after those 6 months, became extremely ill. And so it's not like, we were such cruel,
Okay,
awful
well,
people.
one way or the other, Annie, you've
And that's how-
you've
that's how-
offended that family. Perhaps you want to say,
And I want to
express
say I'm
regret.
sorry.
Yes.
That
but
her
it's in
name
black
is
and
not
white.
changed.
That's
you
it,
could never
yeah.
take away the hurt or the pain that you've left Maureen
All
with.
right. But just to go back to Patricia, you've made a serious allegation about the
yes.
other man,
Yes,
Patricia.
Gay, yes.
Are you telling me that you're convinced in your own mind that
I
Eamon
am, yes,
Casey
Gay.
was never the father of this child?
Very convinced, Gay.
You're convinced
Now, can I also state there are other people besides me, and Annie is aware of this, who also knew of that relationship. I'm not the only person.
And this
Are you saying that what Bishop Casey came out and said,
I'm not denying that, Annie. I've never disputed that he has accepted that he is the father of the child. I'm only saying what I feel.
and do you think
Yeah.
that maybe I could have put up somebody else, and I never, ever, ever, never told anybody, I never told you who you're trying to say that I named the
I'm
person.
sorry, Annie. My memory is very vivid of that, and I can't. I'm not
Fine.
going to go into a harangue with you because that isn't the way I work.
Okay, all right. Yes, Tom,
I'm
one
very
last-
curious
one
why
last point.
nowhere in the book did anybody interview her intimate flatmate with whom she lived for months during this whole time and when the baby was conceived or everything. Why
I
Peter
called
DeRossi
it,
didn't
and I
interview her?
told her of the writer. Now, if Dipna, number one, we had Peter DeRosa said, "I am not going to take this project on unless I write Bishop Casey's solicitor and tell him that I'm doing this book, and I want to give him an opportunity to come forward
Yes.
and address anything that you have put in."
Yes, and he
we did
didn't.
this twice. He didn't.
And he didn't come
Excuse me, they
forward.
never sent the book to Bishop Casey.
No, but they asked him, was there any, particular thing that he would object to?
And we did it twice.
You did
how
it
can
twice.
he
I know.
respond- how can
He
he
didn't
respond
see
to
the
that?
proofs of the book. I know. How do you respond to
How
that?
do you
I know.
respond
It's
to
very,
that?
it's very
It's
difficult.
extraordinary.
Let me finish by asking you, Annie, when did you last see Eamon?
In August of 1991.
91. That was the last time. Do you hope to see him again? He has
That
said
is
that
up-
he will. He has said that he will contact Peter and he will try to develop some sort of relationship with Peter now. But do you?
No, that would be entirely up to Eamon. I would have no say in that. That would be entirely, if Eamon wanted to say something to me, whether it be good or bad, then I would see him, but I would not seek him out, no.
What would you say to him if you met him, do you think?
I would wait for Eamon to speak with me, and then I would have to take it from there.
Okay, the book is on the record. Presumably it will become a movie in due course,
That will, go ahead.
or a mini television series or whatever. Looking at that now, what is your, in summation, what is your feeling at the moment? Are you filled with sadness about the whole thing? Do you regard it as a tragedy?
I think it is sad in the aspects that if Eamon had come forward just a little bit and had maybe seen Peter 2 or 3 times a year, this could have been avoided. And I think that's sad. I didn't expect for this to be easy, and I expect that people that are around Bishop Casey would rally around him as I would any friend.
Yes.
I would. I had a
Yes.
friend that was in tremendous trouble,
Yes.
and I rallied around her and gave the best support I could. But I told the truth
Yes.
as I saw it, and there were some things about it that were not terrific in that situation, and but I gave the good parts.
I happen to think that Bishop Eamon took bad advice when he decided to leave the country. Do you?
He might not have been able to help himself. He might have just been told to do it, and I was surprised. I thought he would stay, to be honest with you.
Okay, it sure is a tragedy, and it's a sad story no matter how you look at it, but I want to give just before I leave you, I want to give a final clue. Are you ready for the final clue to our postal quiz just before we leave you? Here it is. Now the 40 days are over, you can come out of your shell. This the day you're in the clover, back on chocolates, booze, and fags as well. Cards in by first post, please, Friday, 23rd of April. Thank you for telling us of your
I just
life.
want to say one thing.
Could we have your, sorry, folks.
I
please,
think
go
that, you know, people have, everybody's going to have an opinion, and Eamon is a great man with some defects, as we all are. Like Mike Train said, every man has a dark side to him in the moon. But don't forget, Eamon harangued me and bothered me to the point where I could never have another child again. And he did say to me, you know, those adoption papers were there. And I'm not saying to end that on a bad note. I actually felt bad for him. You know, I felt sad for him that he would feel that necessary to be actually kind of almost that afraid. And I'm not saying that he was cruel.
He would say he was doing that, Annie, because he didn't have faith in your capacity to look after the child. That's what he would say.
And so I should never have another child. I could never have another child.
I'm only telling you what he would say.
And how do you know that?
I just know that.
You do? Okay. But I have brought that child up well.
Yes, you have.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. The child is I gave my heart,
Yes, you
body,
have.
and soul. And he is, people will tell you he's a good child, and, you know, and I think my child is, if I've done anything in this life, I have brought somebody into this world that hopefully will continue to do good, and who has been a very good friend to people and has tremendous, he's a very good boy. So he was wrong in that respect.
Is he Eamon's child?
Yes, he is.
Well...
And you could put me in a firing squad, and I'd say he is Eamon's child. I have been, you know, I've taken very little out of this book. If there is a movie, God knows, you know, there have been there are no movies, you know, but there have been inquiries. I will treat that movie the same as I have this book. I will take practically anything. I will take nothing from it except if I lose work. I've always worked. I will work. From 3 years from now, I'll come back and you'll see that I still work.
Okay.
All right? That's what I have
Let's
to
end
say.
with a note and say, if your son is half as good a man as his father, he won't be doing too badly.
Well, I'm not so bad either, Mr.
Will you settle
Byrne.
for that? Settle for that. Will you settle for that?
I'll settle for part of that,
Settle
but
for
I will
part of
a
it.
part of that. But also, I'm not so bad myself
Okay.
as you'd like to
Agreed.
think.
Agreed. All right.
All right.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank
the
you.
show. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Annie Murphy. Okay. That's it, folks. Now, before you go, can I just have your attention, please? Because we've run over time. We've run way over time, 10 minutes over time. Now, don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, when you're going out, it's very, very hot in here. It's very, very cold outside. We want you to put on your hats and coats. Thank you for your cooperation, and we hope you enjoyed the show. And don't forget, on the way out, you have to drop in your card if you know the answer to the postal quiz, and you have to collect your little prezzies, which are? Easter egg, leg of lamb, cassette. What? He never asked a question. He asked a question, all right. I know, I had to get out on time. I had to get out on time.
Can you imagine trading Galway Bay for the